Hey friends. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at another new exponent law, not one that you've dealt with in junior high. And it's going to be around what a negative exponent does. So yesterday we talked about what a fractional exponent does, and you will recall hopefully that the denominator of your fraction in your exponent became the root index of the radical. And then the numerator of your fraction just became an exponent overall on the whole number, okay? So today we want to take a look into negative exponents and try and figure out what is going on there. Quick little warm up for you. You can take a look at this on your own time and just see what you think. I'm going to post the answers here in a second, so if you want to try it by yourself, just put a pause. You would have gotten a surface area around 1.27 meters squared for the first A part there, and then a mass of close to 137 kilograms for the B part. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to grab your calculator and I want you to figure out the exact value for each one of these powers here. Now, when I say exact value, you need to make sure you realize that that means I don't want a decimal here. Okay, so if you're looking at a decimal, I want you to convert it to a fraction and write the fraction down instead. So if you are a child of Casio, you will press your S to D button. If you're a child of TI, you'll press Math Enter Enter to put it into a fraction. Okay, so what you should have gotten there is you should have gotten 64, and then 16, and then 4. I'm hoping those ones could be done in your head along with the 1. It would have been the negative ones that you may have needed a calculator for. And what you would have noticed is 4 to the negative 1 is 1 over 4, 4 to the negative 2 is 1 over 16, and 4 to the negative 3 is 1 over 64. And I'm hoping at this stage of the game, even though we're only like a minute into this lesson, you're getting super excited because you're saying, oh, hey, I realize what that negative exponent's doing. Do you notice anything? You sure do. A negative exponent seems to be the same as the reciprocal of its positive version, right? 4 to the 1 was 4, but 4 to the negative 1 is 1 over 4, okay? So what a negative exponent actually tells us to do is it tells us to flip the base, okay? Then it's a positive exponent. So here is the algebraic law. So x to the negative n will equal 1 over x to the n. So what happens is the x will flip to 1 over x, and we take the reciprocal of it as the mathematical term there, and then it's to the positive exponent instead of to the negative exponent. And likewise, 1 over x to the negative n would give me x to the n, where x is any non-zero number and n is a rational number. X to the negative n is the reciprocal of x to the n, okay? So, express the following with positive exponents. So x to the negative 2 would be 1 over x to the positive 2, or 1 over x squared, okay? Let's go down here. What I want you to notice here is the only negative exponent you have here is the negative 4. So x to the 3 is positive. It's going to stay right where it is. It's just the y that's going to get flipped here. It's not xy that's flipped, just y. So I want you to think of these as one big fraction. Think of the whole thing right now as over 1. What happens is the y to the negative 4, that's going to flip to the bottom of the fraction and become y to the 4 on the bottom. So essentially, the proper way to write that would be x cubed over y to the 4, okay? This guy, this will be x to the 5, because 1 over x, the reciprocal of that would be x. And then the blue guy here, 1 over x to the negative 3, that'd be x cubed, okay? All right, now evaluate without using a calculator. 5 to the negative 3 is the same as 1 over 5 to the 3, and then we know that 5 to the 3 is 125, so your final answer would be 125, okay? This is a really important step for me to see because I want to make sure you understand and you're showing me, you're communicating that you know what that negative exponent does. A negative exponent sends the base to the bottom, it flips the bottom. Okay, negative 2 over 3 to the negative 3. Now, lots of kids get confused once we've got double negatives going on here. This has nothing to do with flipping, okay? That just means that the number itself is negative. This is what's flipping, okay? He's the guy that tells me to flip. And when I flip a negative number, I still have a negative number, okay? So flipping negative 2 over 3 would give me negative 3 over 2. And then I take that to the 3. So negative 3 to the 3 is negative 27, and 2 to the 3 is 8. So my final answer there would be negative 27 over 8. Okay. Now, 1.7 to the negative 2. Well, if I want to flip that, that would be easier to read if it was in a fractional form. So 7.7 is 7 over 10. So that's 1 and 7 over 10, which would be 17 over 10. Okay. So if I'm looking at 17 over 10 and I want to flip that, so this is 17 over 10 to the negative 2. That's going to equal 10 over 17 to the positive 2. Okay. Now, 10 squared is 100, and 17 squared, do you know what 17 squared is off the top of your head? It's 289. Now, if I'm stressing you out because this question said use without a calculator, I'm not suggesting that you have to figure out what 17 squared is without a calculator, okay? When we say use without a calculator, nobody's going to take your calculator away at this precise moment in time. What we want to do is we want to see this communication. This communication tells me you are following the exponent laws without the use of your calculator. You're communicating to me that you understand what those exponent laws are doing. If you need the calculator to tell you what 17 squared is, that's totally fine. Don't stress about that, okay? All right. Can we apply the meaning of rational exponents, which we learned last lesson, and the meaning of negative exponents and put them together? So now we have a negative rational exponent. Well, I want you to look at an 8 to the negative 2 over 3 and say, okay, 3 things have to happen. The negative tells me I have to flip it. The 3 tells me it's a cube root. The 2 tells me it's squared, okay? So we're just going to unpack that for a second. What is the meaning of the exponent negative 2 over 3? The negative tells me to flip the base. The 3 refers to a cube root. The 2 refers to squaring a number. Does the order matter? No, it actually doesn't. So whichever one you like first, you can do. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I did was I flipped it. I got rid of that negative. So 8 flipped is 1 over 8. Now it's to the positive 2 over 3 instead of to the negative 2 over 3. Now the cube root of 8 is 2, so I'm looking at 1/2 squared, and 1/2 squared is a quarter. Okay? So another law to deal with then is x to the negative m over n. We're just going to apply all 3 of those things, right? The negative tells me to flip it, the n will become the nth root, and the m will become another exponent. So it will equal 1 over the nth root of x all to the m. Okay? All right, evaluate without using a calculator. So 27 to the negative 2 over 3, that's going to equal 1 over 27 to the positive 2 over 3. Then I'll take the cube root of that, which is 1 over 3, and then I'll square it, which is 1 over 9. 9 over 16 to the negative 3 over 2, I'm going to flip it first so that I have a positive exponent. So that will be 16 over 9 to the 3 over 2. I'm going to square root them. So that's 4 over 3. And then I have to cube it. So that would be 64 over 27. Okay. And then this guy over here, negative 8 to the negative 2 over 3. Now that negative outside here just means the number itself is negative, and that negative doesn't apply to the exponent, right? Because an exponent only applies to what's directly in front of it. So I'm just going to pick on this guy for a little while. I'm going to say, okay, 8, the reciprocal of 8 is 1 over 8. I have to take the cube root of that, so that'd be 1 over 2. I have to square it, so that would be 1 over 4, and then I have a negative in the front. Okay, so final answer there would be negative 1 over 4. Okay, let's keep going. 25 over 4 to the negative 1 over 2. Well, I'm going to deal with that negative exponent first. So that's 4 over 25 to the 1 over 2. I square root it, so that'd be 2 over 5. 625 to the negative 3 over 4. I'm going to flip that to be 1 over 625 to the positive 3 over 4. I have to take the 4th root of 625. That'd be 5. And then cube it would be 125. So I'd be left with 1 over 125. And then 25 over 4 to the negative 3 over 2. I'm going to flip it and get rid of that negative exponent first. So that'd be 4 over 25 to the 3 over 2. I would square root it, so that'd be 2 over 5, and then I'd have to cube it, which would be 8 over 125. Okay, hopefully that's all making sense. Okay, just some wording here, just to recall. Make sure you understand what each of these words mean. Super, super important. Simplify means to write in simplest form. So for example, root 8, you would be wanting to find a perfect square factor of 8. That's 4 times 2, so you'd write it as root 4 times root 2. The root of 4 is 2. Your simplified version would be 2 root 2. Your simplified version is not a decimal. Do not ever think that writing a decimal is simplifying a number, okay? Evaluate means to actually put it in your calculator, sorry, and get an answer. So the evaluation of that would be around 2.83. Exact value means your answer cannot be a decimal or an approximation. So if I wanted to figure out what the 125 over 729 to the 1/3 is, I would cube root 125, I would cube root 729, and I would leave that in fraction or simplified radical form, depending on what we're talking about. That's what exact value means. In this case, the answer would be 5 over 9. Okay? All right, so this was a quicker lesson, but make sure that you do follow through and do the practice. Make sure you're understanding things. Make sure you're communicating each step really well. And remember, this is not about just putting in your calculator and writing me down an answer. The answer in math is never worth anything unless you're showing me the work to back up where your answer is coming from. Okay, it's all about in communicating how I get from here to here. If you just go to here, that's of no value to me. I want to see the process. Okay, so have fun and connect with me if you have any questions. Take care, guys.